What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing. Today I want to take a look at the original Murderous Row and a couple of African American fighters that never really got their just due. We're looking at perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest fighter that ever lived, in my opinion, Sam Langford. Let's take a look at him. Now, right now we're looking at Sam Langford and Jeannette. Jeannette, his back is to you, and Sam Langford is to your right. Now, Sam Langford has a bald head. Jeannette is to your right. I'm hesitating because they keep moving around. But if you look at Jeannette, he constantly pushes off and uses the jab. Sam Langford, who's to your right, works with his free hand. Now we're looking at two fighters who, in Sam Langford's case, started out as a featherweight. Jeannette is over 6 foot tall. Sam Langford was about 5'7", who couldn't be any more than really a middleweight. And he fought several fights with Jeannette. And we're going to get a little bit more into that shortly. But I just want to give you an idea of the fighters that we're going to be talking about. Look at those jabs to the body by Jeannette. And he's walking Sam Langford around, using his weight to his advantage. Sam Langford blocking and parrying punches, shifting Jeannette around. I mean, they're doing over 20 rounds at this point. Wonderful, wonderful fighters. Now, Sam Langford's nickname was the Boston Tar Baby. Born February 12, 1880, in Weymouth, Nova Scotia. His height was 5 foot 7.5 inches, and his weight was 140 to 178 pounds. Powerfully built. His reach was 73 inches and had a waist of 32 inches and a chest of 44 inches. He started his career as a featherweight in 1902, and the following year defeated Joe Gans and drew with Jack Blackburn. In 1904, he drew with Joe Walcott, and in 1906, at Chelsea, Massachusetts, he lost a thrilling bout in 15 rounds to Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson refused another Sam Langford fight. See, now that's incredible. That is phenomenal so far with this achievement. Within a couple of years span, he went from featherweight to fighting Jack Johnson, who was a heavyweight. He challenged Joe Gans along the way at lightweight. Joe Walcott, who was a welterweight. And these were all champions. Not at the time, but up and coming. In 1908, he started cleaning up the White Hopes, defeating Sandy Ferguson in 12 rounds, halting Jim Barry, Jim Flynn, and Tony Ross, and fought a 6-round no-decision bout with Stanley Ketchel in 1910. Langford fought Jeannette, Harry Wills, and Sam McVey often. Now, he and Wills fought 22 times. He retired in 1924. His record shows a total of 247 professional fights, of which he won 37 by decision, scored 98 knockouts, drew in 31, lost 17, and was knocked out by 4 opponents, engaged in 2 no contests and 58 no decision bouts. He had cataracts in his eyes that brought him to blindness. He was an extraordinary fighter with the most remarkable record, although he never held a title. Langford lived in Boston, Massachusetts, where friends staged a benefit to gather funds for his needs. Elected to Boxing Hall of Fame in 1955, he died on January 12, 1956, at Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now, Sam Langford started his professional career in 1902. We're just going to slowly comb through his career. As you can see, Sam Langford well over 20 bouts in his first year fighting. Well, actually his second year, because he started in 02 and this is 1903. Notable fight was Jack Blackburn, December 23rd, 1903. It was a 12-round draw. This was in Boston. Phenomenal. Now, a lot of these fighters I do know. I know of their careers. If you go back to December 8th, he fought Joe Gans in Boston. That was a 15-round fight. But I'm trying to get notable names here for you. 1904, January 11th, he fought Jack Blackburn in Philadelphia. That was a 6-round, no decision fight. Charlie Johnson killed him in 5 rounds. Dave Holly, April 11th. And Cambridge, that he lost 10 rounds to Dave Holly. George McFadden. George Elbow McFadden. He was a very dirty fighter. September 5th. Actually, July 29th. It's a 2-round KO. And September 5th, he fought Joe Walcott in Manchester. That was a 15-round draw. Dave Holly, Jack Blackburn. This is all in the same year. This is phenomenal. 1905. Belfield Walcott. He was an unbelievable fighter himself. Dave Holly. George Cole. Awesome African-American fighter. Young Peter Jackson. Fought him twice. Larry Temple. Jack Blackburn. Young Peter Jackson. Joe Jeannette. All African-American fighters who just didn't get their just due. They fought each other several times. 1906. Larry Temple. Fought him in Chelsea. That was a 15-round KO. Black Fitzsimmons. Outstanding fighter. March 19th. That was an 11th-round KO. And you'll notice, this is 1907, January 11th, Joe Jeannette. A 12-round draw. He fought Joe Jeannette several times. Tiger Smith, awesome fighter. Gotta look some of these guys up. Jeff Thorne. Larry Temple. Jim Barry, fought him twice. He was an incredible fighter, very strong. Young Peter Jackson. Jim Barry once again, all in the same year. 1908. Jim Barry once again. Black Fitzsimmons. Joe Jeannette, Larry Temple, Jim Barry. Incredible. This is really incredible. 1909 for Jim Barry once again. Jim Johnson, very, very strong fighter. Bill Tate, another strong fighter. These guys are over 6 feet tall. And remember, Sam Langford was only 5'7". Now, he lost to Bill Tate. He went the distance with him, 12 rounds. Jim Johnson, he defeated him in 12 rounds. Harry Wills in Philadelphia. That was a no decision, 6 rounds. Kid Norfolk, KO2. Wow. For Jeff Clark like 4 times. In 1918. Harry Wills twice in 1918. This is unbelievable. Jack Thompson, Philadelphia. That was a no decision. 6 rounds. Now in 1919, November 5th, he fought Harry Wells and he lost his Negro title. See, he was a 5-time champion, but he couldn't fight for the world title, so they had Negro titles back then. Battling Jim Johnson, Jack Thompson, Dave McBride. These are phenomenal fighters that I'm naming here right now. George Godfrey knocked him out in 1 round. Cyclone Smith, Bill Tate, Tut Jackson. Awesome fighters. Tiger Flowers killed him in 2 rounds. Bearcat Wright knocked him out in 3 rounds. Bill Tate, 112. Jack Taylor, no decision. 10 rounds. Battling Owens, KO 7. Fireman Jim Flynn, the only man to knock out Jack Dempsey. He knocked him out in 3 rounds. Jack Taylor, 15-round draw. Phenomenal. So the total bouts between Langford and Wills was 22. He died January 12, 1956, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Let's take a look. Langford gives up 11 inches and 85 pounds to spar. He would have eventually become a KO victim. Big Bill Tate. Sam Langford, 164, 35, 33, 115 KOs. Now this is according to Ring Magazine. 48 no decisions. Years fought 1902 to 26. Titles held none. Which is not true. He had the what they call the Negro Championship. He had that 5 times. Let's just take a quick look at all the fights he fought with Harry Wells. I mean, this is just incredible. I'm just going to scan this. This is crazy right here, man. This is crazy right here. You see that Negro title went back and forth between the two of them. Now let's move on to Sam McVey. How many times he fought Sam McVey? Fought McVey all over the place. Sydney, Australia, in New York, Denver, Colorado, up in Boston, Chicago. This is crazy. And let's take a look at Sam Langford and Jeannette. This is fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Sam Langford in his prime. Now let's take a look at something here. We got Sam Langford had short arms, stood only 5'7" and weighed less than 168 pounds. Let's stop right there. Now, if he weighed less than 168 pounds, in today's standards, that's super middleweight. But yet he was fighting light heavyweights and heavyweights. So I can't think of any 168 pounders except for Roy Jones and James Toney that actually took him on and obviously defeated him because they won the title, which Sam Langford would have had no problem doing. But I can't think of many more fighters that have done that. It just doesn't happen. Yet was acknowledged as one of the best fighters who ever lived. Langford didn't worry who he fought, where, or for how much. Stop right there. We're having a lot of problems today making fights because of what size gloves, what size ring, whether I get an opportunity to fight you a second time. This is crazy. And I just showed you how many times Sam Langford fought Wills and Jeannette and Sam McVey. It's just a different time. So they cannot compare any of the fighters to these guys. They just can't. I don't even want to hear the conversation. He knocked out fully blown heavyweights like Fireman Jim Flynn, Gumbo Smith, Harry Wills. This is crazy. All right, let's move on to the next fighter. The next fight I want to talk about is Joe Jeannette. Joe Jeannette never got the just due that he deserved. Never. And he had one of the greatest fights with Sam McVey in the history of boxing. Brutal fights, over 50 rounds. Let's see. The complete list of men elected to the 1967 Boxing Hall of Fame. The pioneers were Barney Young Aaron, lightweight and welterweight. Joe Jeannette was the heavyweight of the old-time group. Sugar Ray Robinson was the middleweight of the modern group. This was back in 1967. Look how many times he fought Jack Johnson. Incredible. Majority of these fights within a 2-year span. And he had like a little exhibition with Jack Johnson back in 1947. And once again, Sam Langford versus Joe Jeannette. Incredible. This is just absolutely amazing. So it's important that you look at your history because, you know, you can't be lied to. You don't want anybody lying to you and telling you things that's not a fact because you can't go back and judge. But see, you actually can if you do some research. And you're going to realize a lot of what you've been sold, you know, was just a bag of sand. These guys are just not fighting each other today. Look how many times these guys fought. This is crazy right here. This is crazy. Quickly, we're just going to scan through some of his opponents. Well, let's just say he was born North Bergen, New Jersey, August 26th, 1879. He was 5 foot 10 inches, weighed 190 pounds. He was managed by Dan McCarrick. He started in 1904. This was 2 years after Sam Langford. And just take a look at these names that he fought. And just look some of these guys up because these are phenomenal fighters. Now, a lot of these fighters are similar to the guys that Sam Langford fought, and Sam Langford came from featherweight. See, and this is what I'm talking about. And this is why I have him the greatest fighter that ever lived. Because he did what the word means, fight. Last fight I want to take a look at is Sam McVey. Now, Sam McVey, another underrated fighter. He'd have been champion. He'd have been unification champion, lineal champion from Larry Holmes on up. No problem. Sam McVey, born Oxford, California, May 17th, 1885. He weighed 205 pounds. He was 5 foot 10 and a half inches. 1903 for Jack Johnson, Kid Carter, Denver Ed Martin. Jack Johnson, 1904, Jack Johnson, Denver Ed Martin. This was in Los Angeles. 1907, Joe Jeannette in New York. Frank Craig. They used to call him the Harlem Coffee Cooler. Matt Garther. Ben Taylor. Jack Scales. It's crazy. 1908. Ben Taylor. Joey Smith. Harry Shearing. He was a heck of a fighter. Look at all them knockouts he has. He was, they called the Mike Tyson of that time. Last but not least, let's talk about Peter Jackson. Phenomenal fighter. Peter Jackson was a phenomenal fighter. Let's take a look at his bio. Born July 3rd, 1861 in St. Croix, West Indies. British West Indies. His weight was 192 pounds. His height was 6 foot, 1.5 inches. They have him in Bergen boxing in Australia. Knockouts. Jack Hayes, Sam Britton in 20 minutes. Mike Dooley, 3rd round. He drew with Jack Hayes. He fought George Godfrey, August 24th, 1888. 10-round KO. Now in 1891, May 21st, he fought Jim Corbett. 61-round draw in San Francisco. I mean, you just think about that. May 30th, he fought Frank Salvin. Knocked him out in 10 rounds. He was a British Empire title. He performed in a play, The Uncle Tom's Cabin. Did some exhibitions in that play. Now, 1898, he was stopped by Jim Jeffries in 3 rounds. But here's his record. Total bouts, 38. KO, 12. Won on decision, 16. Won on a foul, once. A draw, 3. Lost on a draw, 1. Excuse me, a decision, I'm sorry. Lost on a foul, none. KO by 2. No decisions, 1. No contest, 2. This is how he looked when he fought Gentleman Jim Corbett. Phenomenal fighter. This is part 1 of my African American series. Look out for part 2 coming up. This is Scrapbook Boxing. Salute to Marlo's Corner, Brother Trey X, Brother Marlo, Kurt Sugar. Peace.